Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over the lowest recoil build for the MP5 in patch 12.9 of Escape from Tarkov. Now, before we get into the video, 99% of you that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so make sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with all my Escape from Tarkov videos. And like with all of my builds, there will be a link in the description to the Tarkov Gunsmith website with this build so you can easily see all the parts and see the updated flea market prices for all of these parts. And I do think the MP5 is a little underrated after everyone gets past the early game. Early wipe, you'll see tons of people using these, and newer players, you'll see a ton of them using these because they have pretty good stats when not being modded at all. And newer players can just spray out PST everywhere for super cheap and have a pretty decent budget weapon. But I do think this is still a pretty good kind of mid-tier to starting of the high end. Its stats are pretty good and it is incredibly cheap, not counting the bullets. So personally for me, with how strong some things like the MPX and the Vector 9mm are right now, I personally would not use an MP5 with 7N, but the MP5 is in that perfect position where you can mod it really cheaply and then go use AP 6.3 to be able to destroy anybody with mid-tier armor super easily, maybe have some fun runs and run around and destroy everything in factory, and have a really cheap weapon with decent bullets that are incredibly cheap compared to 7N, and have that kind of starting of high-end weapons. So first off, we have the sight, and you can use whatever sight you want. The other things you have to choose when determining your sight are what sight you like to use, what range you're going to be using the weapon at, but it's an MP5, so you're probably going to want like a hollow sight or a red dot, and then how much that sight is going to affect the ergo of the weapon. And then for the stock, we're going to be using the HK A2 stock, and then we're using the HK MP5 SD upper receiver. And this is a pretty big change because you have the normal upper receiver and then the SD, essentially the silenced version. Now, if you don't have the correct vendors to get the MP5 SD upper receiver, it's going to be pretty expensive and probably not worth it because one of the earlier gunsmith quests wants you to get one of these, and I think it's kind of mid-tierish vendors that will then allow you to buy it for really cheap for one of them. And then next we have the magazine. Now with the stats of the lowest recoil of this, you'll see we have 46 ergo and 32 vertical recoil. Now with that ergo, that is including a 50 round mag put on the weapon, and with 46 ergo with the 50 rounder on it, I think that's completely usable and feels completely fine to use. And I would much rather use a 50 rounder with that ergo than use the 30 rounder, get plus 11 ergo but have 20 less bullets in a magazine, especially if you're using something like AP 6.3 and you're up against someone with, say, tier 5 armor. Tier 6 you're probably gonna have a hard time, but something like that you're gonna have to spray a lot of bullets into them, so you're definitely gonna want the 50 rounder. And then for our tactical device, we're gonna have the BNT MP5 SD tri-rail ring mount, and then on that we're gonna have our tactical device. Now I use the D-Ball tactical flashlight. I would always recommend this because this allows you to have an IR flashlight and a normal flashlight on the same tactical device, which is incredibly strong, and the D-Ball itself is really cheap anyway. And then we're going to be having the MP5 SD polymer handguard, pretty similar to the MP5 SD upper receiver. The parts that are built as a silenced MP5 are a bit more expensive because I think you need both of those parts for the gunsmith quest, if I'm not mistaken. So this can be decently expensive if you don't have the vendor for this as well, or if you don't have the barter trade for one of these. And then next up we have the MP5 SD silencer. So it's a silencer specifically built for this whole silence package of the MP5. Now you can make a pretty good MP5 build that's not silenced, that has relatively the same recoil with slightly higher ergo, which would make that overall slightly better, but I do think the silenced version of this weapon is just a little bit stronger just because it's silenced, and silencers are pretty strong in this game for not making people more aware of the location you're at, and the weapon is really silenced with it. And I think once you have mid-tier vendors, you can get pretty much all the parts from vendors for this weapon, and it makes it overall a lot cheaper than building an equivalent of the non-silenced version of the MP5. Then we have the MP5 cocking handle. You don't have any other option for this. And then where our sight actually goes on is going to be the MFI-HK Universal Low Profile Scope Mount. That is going to be the final piece. It's another one of those weapons that doesn't have a ton of parts to change out. That also makes it pretty helpful because once you have the vendors to get all these parts, or specifically with this weapon because a bunch of the parts are for a gunsmith quest, but once you have all the vendors to be able to buy these parts from, you don't need to buy a ton of parts, and most of them are relatively cheap. So that is the entirety of the build. And like I was saying, this thing is really cheap once you have, like, I think it's only mid-tier vendors. It's probably like 2 or 3 for the vendors you're getting this from. I'm pretty sure most of these parts are from Peacekeeper, and it's actually really cheap. To fully buy and put together this build right here, it's 100k or slightly over 100k, and that includes with one of the 50 round mags, which are really cheap themselves as well. So that is a really cheap weapon, especially for how good the stats are. So like I said, having a weapon that cheap and then using something like AP 6.3, which isn't the best round but still a really good round, this thing can definitely be a really good weapon, especially this early into the wipe. Still, most people aren't running around with hexes or slicks. Most people are probably running tier 4 armor on average, and AP 6.3 is going to have no difficulty shredding people with tier 4 armor. And this thing is a pretty good weapon to load up some AP 6.3 and run around just shredding mid-tier armored people. And like I said, there will be a link in the description to the Tarkov gunsmith build of this weapon, where you can see all the parts you need for this build and see updated prices in the flea market for all of those parts. So subscribe if you want to see more Escape from Tarkov videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this MP5 build, and thanks for watching.
Go, go!
Yep, better.